Her mate kicked her stomach to kill his own pup. The enemy alpha caught her fall and declared war. Lyra ran through the undergrowth, her breath sharp, heart pounding like the drumbeats of an ancient ritual. Tonight was meant to prove her loyalty to her pack, to her mate, Kale. But Lyra's heart felt strange, heavy, and full of doubt. Kale was strong, feared, and cruel. He had the confidence of a king, but the heart of a storm. His eyes, dark as midnight, seemed to see everything, even the corners of Lyra's soul she tried to hide. She loved him once deeply, completely. But that love was shifting, bending into fear she could no longer ignore. The clearing ahead was bathed in the silver light of the full moon. Shadows danced over the gathered warriors, their eyes glowing with anticipation. The pup, small, trembling, and innocent, lay at the center. The ritual was meant to be a test. Only the strongest, only the most loyal, could survive the night and claim their place beside the alpha. Kale knelt beside the pup, his hand resting on its small head. Lyra stepped forward, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. She had cared for the pup in secret, a bond no one else understood. Kale's face twisted, not with affection but with anger and cold judgment. "It is weak," he said, voice low and sharp. "It cannot survive, it must be ended." Lyra's chest tightened. "No," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "It does not deserve this. It is innocent, let it live." Kale's gaze turned on her and the world seemed to freeze. The anger in his eyes was a storm, dark and unyielding. "You defy me." His voice was both hurt and fury. "You betray your own blood." Lyra took a step forward, feeling the forest hum with tension. "I am not betraying anyone," she said. "I cannot watch cruelty and do nothing. I will not harm it." Kale's expression hardened. In an instant, the air seemed to shift. He moved with the swiftness of a shadow, striking her stomach with the heel of his boot. Pain exploded inside her, and she collapsed onto the forest floor, the world spinning around her. The pup whimpered, tiny and fragile, as Kale's foot hovered above it. Then, from the edge of the clearing, a figure emerged. Silent, powerful, and commanding attention without a word. Riven, the alpha of a rival clan, stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly in the moonlight. His presence was like the forest itself, dark, mysterious, and impossible to ignore. He moved faster than Lyra could comprehend, catching her fall before she hit the ground fully. His arms were strong, protective, yet gentle, as if she were a precious relic he had stumbled upon in a world that had forgotten kindness. Lyra's breath came in shallow gasps. She had expected fear, but instead there was an odd warmth, a feeling she could not name. Kale's anger did not waver. "Step back, intruder," he spat, voice sharp. "This is not your place." Riven's eyes locked with Kale's. There was no fear, only calm authority. "You would harm her for a pup?" he asked, voice low, resonant, like rolling thunder contained. "This cruelty will not go unchallenged." The forest seemed to hold its breath. Lyra, still trembling, looked between the two men, the mate she had once trusted and the stranger who had saved her. The weight of the night pressed upon her chest, heavy and suffocating. Kale's jaw tightened. "She is mine," he growled. "And this pup is a threat to my pack. You cannot interfere." Riven's lips curved in a faint, almost cruel smile. "Perhaps, but cruelty is never loyalty. Tonight I decide." Without another word, Kale's followers hesitated, unsure whether to obey the Alpha's command or the authority of the mysterious intruder. The tension was like a living thing, winding around Lyra's heart. Riven lowered her gently to the ground. His eyes softened slightly just for a moment, as if acknowledging her fear and pain. Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. Who are you?" "I am Riven," he said, "and I do not let innocence die." The pup squeaked again, tiny and vulnerable. Riven lifted it carefully, cradling it like a sacred treasure. Lyra's heart ached, not just for the pup, but for the realization that she had been wronged by the one she trusted most. Kale's voice thundered through the clearing. "You dare take what is mine?" Riven's gaze never left Kale. "What belongs to cruelty is never truly yours," he replied, a subtle power underlying his words, like a spell cast without magic. Lyra struggled to her knees, her body weak from the blow. Her chest ached, her head spun, but her resolve was stronger than ever. She knew that standing with Kale now would mean endorsing a cruelty she could no longer bear. And yet, trusting Riven was dangerous. Every instinct screamed caution, yet another whispered that he might be the only ally she had. Kale roared, stepping forward, the ground trembling beneath him. "You will regret this, both of you." Riven straightened, tall and unyielding, the forest itself seeming to bend around him. "If protecting life makes me your enemy, then so be it," he said. His voice was calm, deliberate, carrying a power that seemed almost supernatural. Lyra felt a strange pull toward him, a connection she could not explain. He had saved her life, yes, but more than that, he had seen her truth, that cruelty was not strength, that mercy was not weakness. The forest was silent, as if holding its breath for what was to come. Kale's followers looked between their Alpha and Riven. Uncertainty flickered in their eyes. The pack had always feared Kale's wrath, but Riven's presence commanded a different kind of respect, one that came not from fear, but from undeniable authority. "You will pay for this," Kale growled, voice low and deadly. "Mark my words, Riven. War will come and you will regret crossing me." Riven's eyes softened, but only slightly, as if acknowledging Kale's threat without fear. "War is not my choice," he said. "But justice will not wait." Lyra watched them, heart pounding, feeling the gravity of the moment. She was no longer just a pawn in Kale's cruel games. She had seen the truth, and the truth had a price. And yet she could not deny the pull she felt toward Riven, a pull that was both terrifying and exhilarating. As Kale finally turned and stormed away, his pack following in uneasy silence, Riven knelt beside her, placing the pup gently in her arms. Lyra felt a wave of emotion she could not name: relief, gratitude, fear, and something else, something dangerous and compelling. "Are you going to hurt me?" she asked softly, still cradling the pup. Riven shook his head, a faint smile touching his lips. "I only protect what is innocent, and you, Lyra, have more courage than you know." Lyra blinked, surprised he knew her name. Why do you care?" Riven's gaze was distant, thoughtful, as if weighing the weight of centuries in a single moment. "Because cruelty deserves no ally, and courage deserves a protector." The mist shifted around them, thick and whispering, as if the forest itself had acknowledged the choice Lyra had made. She felt the first tremors of a new path opening before her, one that would take her far from Kale, far from the life she had known, and closer to a destiny she could neither predict nor fully understand. The pup nestled into her arms, warm and alive, and Lyra felt a spark of hope flicker in the darkness. For the first time in her life, she realized that survival was not just about strength, but about choosing the right side of history, even if that side was dangerous and unknown. Riven stood slowly, offering his hand. "Come," he said. "There is much you do not understand, but tonight you are safe, and tomorrow we prepare." Lyra looked into his eyes, her heart torn between fear and curiosity. The pull she felt toward him was undeniable, like the tide against the shore, irresistible and inevitable. With a shaky breath, she took his hand. As they disappeared into the forest, leaving the clearing empty except for the trembling shadows, the last whisper of Kale's vow lingered in the night air. "This is not over. War will come." The moonlight caught the edges of Lyra's face, pale and determined. She held the pup closer, feeling the fragile warmth, and knew that nothing would ever be the same again. And somewhere deep in the shadows, Riven's eyes glimmered with a promise of protection, of challenge, and perhaps, in time, of something far more dangerous: trust, and maybe even love. The forest around Riven's stronghold was alive with shadows and secrets. Moonlight fell in silvery streams, painting the stone walls and dark corridors with light that seemed to move, as if alive. Lyra walked behind Riven, her heart still pounding from the events of the clearing. The small pup nestled against her chest, trembling slightly, a fragile warmth in her hands. Riven's fortress was unlike anything she had ever seen. Towers spiraled into the night sky, walls carved with symbols older than memory. The air hummed with magic, not loud or violent but quiet, as if the place itself was aware of the lives and destinies within it. Lyra's nerves tingled. She had been told stories of Riven, an alpha feared by many, ruthless to enemies, yet mysterious and solitary. Yet here he was, gentle with her, protective of life and powerful without cruelty. He led her through narrow hallways lit by flickering lanterns. His presence was constant, a shadow at her side, both comforting and tense. Lyra's hands tightened around the pup as they entered a room adorned with tapestries depicting battles and legends of old clans. "You will rest here," Riven said, voice calm but firm. "The pup will be safe, and so will you. Tonight the forest is quiet, but it will not stay that way for long." Lyra sat on the edge of a soft bed, heart still uncertain. Why help me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't owe me anything. Kale, he is your enemy." Riven studied her for a long moment, eyes like molten silver. "I do not save lives for debts," he said slowly. "I save them because cruelty should not be allowed to thrive, because bravery deserves recognition, even if it comes from someone who is not yet fully trusted." Lyra's chest tightened. His words were simple, but they carried weight. They held judgment for Kale, understanding for her, and a quiet challenge. She realized that she had never met anyone who saw her for her courage rather than her loyalty to a cruel mate. The pup stirred in her arms, tiny eyes blinking up at her. She smiled faintly, relief washing over her. "At least he's safe," she murmured. "That's all I wanted." Riven knelt beside her, lowering his hand near hers but not touching. "And now you must learn to keep those you care for safe, even when it means defying the world you know," he said. His voice was low, almost a whisper, yet every word pressed into her heart. Lyra's mind raced. Defying Kale, the one she had once loved, would not be easy. His power, his temper, and his influence over their pack made him almost untouchable. And yet, Riven offered her a different path, one where courage and morality mattered more than fear. Days passed in the fortress. Lyra trained under Riven's watchful eye, learning not just strength but strategy, patience, and control. Every movement was deliberate, every action measured. The pup grew stronger, bonding with her and Riven alike, a silent reminder of the choices that had led her here. At night she would sit by the high windows, looking out at the forest below, thinking of Kale, of her old life, and of the strange pull she felt toward Riven. She could not explain it, a mix of fear, respect, and something deeper, something that stirred in her chest every time he looked at her. One evening, as the wind howled through the towers, Riven approached her. He carried a small bowl of food for her and the pup. "Eat," he said simply. "You need strength more than courage alone." Lyra took the bowl, her hands brushing his. A jolt of heat ran through her at the contact. She looked up, meeting his gaze. The light of the fire reflected in his eyes, revealing a softness she had not expected. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "I don't know if I can ever repay that." Riven shook his head. "Do not speak of repayment. Courage does not require payment, only understanding." His eyes lingered on hers, piercing and sincere. "But there is something I need you to understand. Not everyone in this world is what they seem. Even those who call themselves allies can betray you. You must choose who you trust carefully." Lyra nodded, her thoughts heavy. Kale's betrayal still burned in her chest, a wound that refused to heal. And yet, here in the quiet fortress, she felt a sense of safety she had never known. Days later, she accompanied Riven to the outer walls, watching as he inspected the defenses. The forest stretched endlessly, dark and secretive. Lyra's heart tightened at the thought of Kale, planning, scheming, seeking revenge. She had survived his cruelty once, but could she survive what was coming? Riven noticed her tension. "You worry about him," he said, voice low. "And rightly so, but you are stronger than you know. Your courage, your choices, they matter more than fear." Lyra looked up at him, studying his expression. There was honesty there, a rare truth that she had longed for but never found in Kale. "I don't know if I can face him again," she admitted. "You will," Riven said, placing a hand on her shoulder briefly. "And when you do, you will not be alone. You have allies and you have your own strength. You must trust it and trust yourself." That night sleep came uneasily. Lyra dreamed of the clearing, of Kale's rage, and of Riven's steady presence. The images mingled, confusing and stirring emotions she could not yet name. She woke with the pup nestled against her, warm and alive, a small comfort in the cold silence. The next day, Riven took her deeper into the fortress, revealing libraries of old texts, weapons, and maps of the territories controlled by rival clans. "Knowledge is power," he said simply. "You cannot rely on strength alone. You must know the world, its dangers, and its truths." Lyra absorbed every word, every lesson, feeling herself transform. The fear that had once ruled her heart began to fade, replaced by determination and clarity. She realized that she was no longer Kale's pawn. She had a choice, and for the first time she understood that her life was her own. As days turned into weeks, a quiet bond grew between Lyra and Riven. It was not spoken aloud, but it was there in the way he watched her train, in the way he listened to her speak, and in the way she felt safe in his presence. Yet neither spoke of it. Both were cautious, aware that trust was fragile and the world beyond the walls was still dangerous. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light across the stone towers, Riven brought Lyra to the highest balcony. Below, the forest stretched like a dark sea, and the wind carried the scent of distant storms. "You have changed," he said softly, eyes on the horizon. "Stronger, wiser, more aware of what is truly important." Lyra felt her heart stir. "I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. Riven turned to face her fully, the last rays of sunlight catching his face. "You did this yourself, Lyra. I only guided. You chose the path of courage, even when it terrified you." For a long moment they stood in silence. The wind tugged at their hair and clothing, carrying with it the scent of pine and distant rain. The pup yipped softly, breaking the spell, and Lyra smiled, brushing the pup's fur. But peace was fleeting. From the shadows beyond the balcony, Riven's scouts returned, their faces grim. Kale's forces were gathering, moving toward the fortress with deadly purpose. Lyra's heart sank. She had hoped that distance might protect them, but Kale's anger was relentless and his cruelty unmatched. She turned to Riven, fear and determination mingling in her gaze. "He's coming." Riven's eyes hardened. "Then we prepare," he said, voice steady and commanding. "We protect what is ours and what is just. The time for caution has passed. War is coming, whether we like it or not." Lyra felt a mix of fear and resolve. She had survived Kale's cruelty once, but now she had allies, knowledge, and strength. And beside her stood Riven, protector, teacher, and something more she could not yet name. As the night fell, cloaking the fortress in shadow, Lyra knew their world was changing. The calm of the fortress, the warmth of the pup, and the quiet guidance of Riven were only the beginning. Kale's wrath was coming, and with it, challenges that would test courage, loyalty, and hearts. But for the first time, Lyra felt a spark of hope. She would not be a victim again. She would fight and she would survive. And perhaps in the shadows of war and danger, she might find a bond stronger than fear. One built on trust, courage, and something fragile yet unbreakable, the possibility of love. From the highest balcony, Lyra and Riven watched the dark forest below. The wind whispered warnings, carrying the scent of conflict and the promise of battles to come. Lyra hugged the pup closer, drawing strength from its warmth. And deep in the forest, Kale's silhouette moved like a shadow of rage and revenge, unseen yet undeniable, leaving only one truth. The storm had begun, and neither side would rest until the war was decided. The dawn broke cold over the forest, mist curling like restless spirits. Around the fortress, Lyra stood on the balcony, the pup nestled at her side, her gaze fixed on the horizon where Kale's forces were gathering. The tension in the air was sharp, biting like the frost on the stone. Riven approached silently, his presence commanding yet calm. "They are coming," he said simply, voice steady. His eyes scanned the forest below, calculating, unyielding. "We cannot let them pass, not tonight." Lyra's heart pounded. She had trained, yes, but this was different. This was real. Kale's cruelty would not hesitate. The thought of facing him again sent a shiver down her spine. And yet she felt something else, a strange courage, born from months of preparation, of learning, and of relying on Riven. "You'll be at my side?" she asked, her voice tight with both fear and hope. Riven's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly, as he nodded. "Always," he said. "Tonight we fight together." The fortress stirred to life. Warriors sharpened weapons, adjusted armor, and whispered prayers to ancestors long gone. Magic hung in the air, subtle yet powerful, like a pulse beneath the stone. Lyra felt the weight of history pressing down, the unspoken lessons of survival, courage, and strategy flowing through her veins. When the first scouts of Kale's army appeared at the edge of the forest, the tension snapped into action. Horns sounded, echoing through the trees, announcing the battle. Lyra gripped the hilt of her sword, the steel cold but familiar, her pulse steadying. Riven moved beside her, fluid and precise, directing warriors with calm authority. Every movement was measured, a testament to experience and strength. Lyra followed his lead, her training guiding her, every step a dance of strategy and survival. The first clash was sudden, brutal, but not cruel. Warriors collided, shields and swords clashing, the forest echoing with the sounds of battle. Lyra felt a thrill of fear and determination, her heart pumping with adrenaline. She moved with purpose, defending the fortress, defending the pup, defending herself. Amid the chaos, Kale appeared. His presence was like a storm, black and violent, commanding attention and fear. Lyra froze for a heartbeat, memories of the clearing, of the blow that had nearly ended her life, flooding back. But beside her, Riven's steady presence reminded her that she was no longer alone. "Focus," Riven said, voice low, right by her ear. "Do not let fear control you." Lyra nodded, drawing a deep breath. She would not let fear rule her. Not now, not ever. She stepped forward, joining the battle with renewed purpose, every swing of her sword a declaration of courage. Kale's eyes found hers, a spark of rage and recognition passing between them. He moved toward her, his steps like thunder, and Lyra felt the old fear stir, but also a new strength, a determination to survive and protect. The pup whimpered nearby, and Lyra's heart clenched. Protecting it had been the reason she had defied Kale once. Now, in the heat of battle, it was more than that. It was about justice, about standing against cruelty, about claiming her own power. Riven fought at her side, his movements seamless, protective. He did not overshadow her but complemented her, a partner in every sense. They moved together, silent understanding in every glance, every gesture, their bond deepening in ways words could not capture. Kale lunged toward Lyra, and for a moment, time seemed to slow. She raised her sword, meeting his attack, their eyes locking in a clash not just of steel but of wills. Rage and betrayal radiated from him, but Lyra's resolve was stronger. She would not yield. "You cannot win through cruelty," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Strength is not power over the weak." Kale's jaw tightened, fury clouding his vision. "You dare lecture me?" he roared, swinging again. Lyra blocked, parried, and struck with precision. The dance of battle was fierce, but she felt a clarity she had never known before. Every strike, every movement was guided not by fear, but by courage, by the desire to protect what mattered most. Beside her, Riven faced warriors with calm authority, his every action a shield for those who could not defend themselves. He moved with grace and power, yet his eyes never left Lyra's. Their connection, unspoken but undeniable, lent her strength she had never imagined. The battle raged through the day, shifting like a living thing. Forest paths became battlegrounds, shadows hiding secrets, and every sound carried danger. Lyra realized that the war was not just against Kale's forces, but within herself. The fear, the doubt, the memory of betrayal. She fought not just with steel but with heart, confronting the storm inside her as fiercely as the one outside. At a brief pause in the battle, Riven approached her, wiping sweat from his brow, eyes scanning her face. "You are stronger than you believe," he said quietly. "The courage you show here in the face of him is remarkable." Lyra lowered her sword, breathing heavily, and looked at him. "I don't feel strong," she admitted. "I feel scared, but I cannot let fear win." Riven nodded, understanding. "That is what makes you strong," he said. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear." Their eyes met, a moment of quiet in the storm of battle, and Lyra felt a pull in her chest she could not name. Respect, trust, and something deeper, something that scared her as much as it drew her in. She turned her gaze back to the battlefield, focusing on the task at hand. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Kale made his final push, targeting the pup. Lyra's heart froze. The small creature, her responsibility and symbol of hope, was in danger. Without thinking, she rushed forward, sword in hand, fury and protection fueling every step. Riven followed immediately, moving with calculated speed to intercept Kale. Their combined efforts created a barrier, a wall of strength and determination around the pup. Lyra realized in that moment that she and Riven were no longer just allies. They were a team, bonded by circumstance, trust, and unspoken understanding. Kale's rage was violent, but Lyra's resolve did not waver. She met him head-on, every strike precise, every movement purposeful. She felt the fire of justice and protection burn through her, guiding her hands and feet. Finally, Kale staggered back, frustration and surprise flashing across his face. Riven's calm authority and Lyra's courage had turned the tide. The battle was not over, but for now, they had defended what was most precious. As the dust settled, Lyra collapsed to her knees, holding the pup close. Her body ached, exhaustion washing over her, but her heart swelled with relief. She had survived, protected, and faced her fears. Riven knelt beside her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "You did well," he said softly. "Brave, fierce, and true. You have earned your place here, not just beside me, but in your own right." Lyra looked up at him, tears of exhaustion and relief in her eyes. I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. "You did this yourself," Riven replied. "I only guided you, remember that. The strength was always within you." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The forest around them was quiet now, shadows stretching long and dark. Lyra hugged the pup closer, feeling warmth and life, and realized that she had not just survived the battle, she had begun to transform. Her connection with Riven had grown, subtle yet undeniable. Trust, respect, and perhaps something deeper were blossoming in the quiet moments between chaos. She felt a spark of hope, a fragile light in the darkness of her past, but the war was far from over. Kale had been defeated for now, but his rage and ambition were relentless. Lyra knew that the challenges ahead would test her courage, loyalty, and heart even further. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen but ever present, the forest whispered warnings. The storm had not passed, and the bonds formed in battle would be tested in ways both terrifying and transformative. Lyra looked to Riven, determination and a new strength in her eyes. "We will face it," she said quietly, "together." Riven's gaze met hers, steady, calm, and full of unspoken promise. "Together," he repeated, and for the first time, Lyra believed in the power of that word. As the night settled over the fortress, stars gleaming above like ancient eyes watching over them, Lyra felt the weight of destiny pressing on her shoulders, not as a burden, but as a call. She would face the battles ahead, protect what she loved, and embrace the courage that had been awakened within her. The pup yawned softly in her arms, a reminder of innocence, hope, and the life she had fought to preserve. Lyra knew that the path forward would be dangerous, filled with war, uncertainty, and difficult choices. But she also knew that she was no longer alone, and that gave her a strength she had never known. And in the quiet of the fortress, amidst shadows and whispers, Lyra and Riven shared a glance, a silent acknowledgement of what had passed and what was yet to come. War might rage around them, but a bond stronger than fear had been forged in the fires of battle, one that would carry them through the trials to come, shaping not just their destiny, but the destiny of all who lived in the shadow of Kale's cruelty. The forest was quiet in the early morning, but the air was tense, charged with the weight of what was to come. Lyra stood on the edge of the fortress wall, the pup pressed close against her chest. Her eyes scanned the distant tree line, where Kale's forces had gathered once more, larger and more determined than before. Riven approached silently, his presence a steady anchor in the rising storm of dread. "They have not given up," he said quietly, voice calm but firm. "Kale will not rest until he has what he wants. We must end this tonight, or it will continue forever." Lyra nodded, gripping her sword tighter. Fear still lingered in her chest, but it was tempered by courage. She had grown stronger through every challenge, every trial, and every choice she had made since Kale had betrayed her. She would not falter now. The fortress had been fortified for battle. Archers lined the walls, warriors held their positions, and magic hummed faintly in the air, protective spells woven by Riven and his clan. The pup yipped softly, sensing the tension but also the strength surrounding it. Lyra kissed its small head, drawing strength from its life, its innocence, and her responsibility to protect it. Kale's forces emerged from the forest like a dark tide. Lyra's pulse quickened as she watched them advance. The war that had begun months ago was about to reach its climax. Riven moved to her side. "Remember," he said, voice low, "strength comes not just from steel or magic but from heart. Protect what you love and you cannot fail." Lyra swallowed hard, nodding. She had learned this through every battle, every lesson, every moment she had spent training and fighting alongside Riven. Courage was born not from lack of fear, but from facing it. The clash began with the first arrow, whistles cutting through the morning air. The fortress roared to life. Lyra moved into position, sword in hand, heart steady, body prepared. The first wave of Kale's forces struck, but Riven's strategy was precise, flawless. He moved beside her, each step calculated, each gesture protective, guiding her through the chaos without words. Lyra struck with precision, defending the pup, the fortress, and herself. Every movement reflected her training, her courage, and the bond she shared with Riven. Their teamwork was seamless, like two halves of a single force, each anticipating the other's moves. Kale appeared again, emerging from the forest like a storm made flesh. His eyes locked on Lyra, fury and obsession burning within them. Lyra's chest tightened, but she did not falter. She had faced him before and she had survived. This time she was stronger. "You will not take what I protect," she shouted, stepping forward to intercept him. Kale laughed, dark and sharp. "You think your courage can stop me?" he roared, swinging his weapon with deadly intent. Lyra blocked, parried, and countered with precision. Every strike was fueled by her determination to protect, not by hatred. She realized something important. She did not need to destroy him with cruelty. She only needed to stand strong, to act with courage, to defend what mattered. Riven moved alongside her, his calm presence a shield and a guide. He intercepted Kale's attacks with skill and authority, protecting Lyra when necessary, but never overpowering her. Together, they formed a living wall of determination, protecting the innocent and standing for justice. The battle raged on, the sun climbing higher in the sky, illuminating the chaos below. Lyra fought with everything she had, yet her mind remained clear. She focused on the pup, on the fortress, and on Riven, the man who had shown her courage, guidance, and a strange, unspoken bond that grew stronger with each passing moment. Finally, Kale made a desperate move, aiming directly at the pup. Lyra's heart froze. The small creature she had vowed to protect was in danger. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, placing herself between Kale and the pup. Her body moved instinctively, every muscle reacting faster than thought, fueled by the desire to protect life over all else. Riven intercepted Kale at the same moment, their combined presence forming an unbreakable barrier. Kale struggled against them, his rage blinding, but Lyra's courage did not waver. She remembered every lesson, every moment of pain, every choice that had led her here. She was no longer the frightened warrior who had collapsed under Kale's cruelty. She was strong, capable, and unafraid to face the storm. Kale stumbled back, frustration and disbelief on his face. Lyra pressed forward, standing tall, her sword steady. "This ends now," she said, voice calm but firm. "I will protect what is innocent and I will not yield." Riven's hand brushed briefly against hers, a touch of reassurance, and Lyra felt a surge of strength. She was not alone. Together they were unstoppable. Kale's forces faltered, his energy spent against the unity and courage of those defending the fortress. Finally, Kale retreated, his army scattering into the forest, defeated for now. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the scent of sweat, earth, and magic. Lyra sank to her knees, the pup safe in her arms, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief. Riven knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You were magnificent," he said softly. "Brave, strong, and true. You have earned not just survival but respect, honor, and your own place in this world." Lyra looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears of relief and pride. I couldn't have done it without you," she whispered. "You did this yourself," Riven replied, eyes meeting hers. "I only guided you. The courage was always within you." For a long moment they simply sat together, the pup nestled between them, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Lyra felt a peace she had never known, a quiet joy that came not from victory alone, but from knowing that she had faced her fears and emerged stronger. The bond between Lyra and Riven had grown beyond mere trust. It was silent, deep, and powerful. Every glance, every touch, every shared moment in battle had forged a connection that neither could ignore. It was not love in the rush of passion, but something steadier, more enduring, a respect and understanding that could withstand any storm. As night fell over the fortress, the stars above seemed to shine brighter, like ancient eyes watching over them. Lyra held the pup close, feeling its warmth, and realized that the battles fought and the sacrifices made had given her something greater than victory: hope, courage, and a chance to shape her own destiny. Riven's voice broke the silence. "The war may be over for now, but the world is not at peace. You have proven your strength, Lyra, and you have shown that courage and compassion can change the course of events. But remember, true power comes not from victory alone, but from the choices we make after." Lyra nodded, understanding. She had chosen to protect, to fight, and to act with honor. She had chosen to stand with Riven, and through that choice, she had discovered a new strength within herself. Together, they returned to the fortress, the pup safe and thriving, a symbol of life and hope. Lyra felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. The past could not be undone, but it no longer controlled her. She was free to shape her future, guided by courage, wisdom, and the bond she shared with Riven. In the quiet of the fortress, amidst shadows and flickering lantern light, Lyra and Riven shared a moment of understanding. Words were unnecessary. Their eyes spoke of trust, respect, and the possibility of something deeper, a bond forged in fire, tempered by courage, and illuminated by hope. Lyra realized that her journey was far from over. The world outside would always hold dangers, challenges, and trials. But she no longer feared them alone. With Riven at her side, with courage in her heart, and with the pup as a reminder of innocence and life worth protecting, she felt ready for whatever came next. The night deepened and the fortress stood quiet, a beacon of strength amidst the shadows. Lyra gazed at the stars, feeling the pulse of destiny around her. She had faced cruelty, fear, and betrayal, but she had emerged stronger, braver, and wiser. The lessons of the past would guide her, and the bond with Riven would sustain her. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the forest whispered, carrying tales of bravery, justice, and the rise of a warrior who would not bow to cruelty. Lyra held the pup close, feeling the warmth of life, the weight of choice, and the certainty of courage. Together, Lyra and Riven had faced the storm. Together, they had triumphed. And together, they would face whatever challenges the future held, their bond unbreakable, their hearts aligned, and their spirits unyielding. The world might still be full of shadows, but within the fortress, within their hearts, light had found a place to stay. Courage, hope, and the promise of a new beginning had been forged in the fires of battle, and nothing, no darkness, no cruelty could take it away. Lyra smiled softly, the pup yipping gently in her arms. Riven stood beside her, silent, strong, protective. And as the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, they both knew that the story of courage, trust, and a bond forged in shadows had only just begun. A story that would echo through the ages, reminding all who heard it that bravery, compassion, and love were stronger than fear, cruelty, and darkness.